Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the symptoms of this drift, we actually have to look at the internal anatomy of how you operate. The texts give us this fascinating blueprint of consciousness, and they break it down into three distinct, incredibly powerful forces.
First up, we have the self. In this architecture, the self is pure, present awareness. Think of it as the unified observer, the ultimate chooser, and the eternal divine spark. The self doesn't store memory, it doesn't force movement, it simply sees, and it's meant to be the absolute center of your internal world.
Next, we have the soul. In this framework, the soul is the eternal receiver of experience. It's the keeper of what the texts poetically call the waters of memory. You can basically think of the soul as this massive cosmic archive. It records every emotion, every habit, every little piece of childhood conditioning. It's that subconscious realm that silently runs our behaviors from the background, kind of like a deep, unseen ocean current.
And third, we have the spirit. The spirit is directed will and intentional force. So if the soul is water, the spirit is the fire of action. It's the raw active life force, that energy of transformation and movement that pushes us aggressively toward future possibilities. It's that voice inside you that says, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna build this.
Now, what's really interesting here when we look at the complete picture of this inner trinity, self, soul, and spirit, is noticing what's actually missing. The mind. Because in this system, the mind is not the master. The mind is actually just the living bridge. It's the operating system organizing this trinity. The mind interprets, reasons, and communicates between those deep waters of the soul and the active fire of the spirit, all while being overseen by the self.
The malfunction, mechanics of the drift. Here is where we look at what mechanically goes wrong when your mind begins to drift onto autopilot.
You see, when the mind loses its center, it fractures in one of two directions. Either the spirit dominates or the soul dominates. When the spirit dominates, you get action without meaning. You're just doing, building, running endlessly. It's this blind, hollow busyness just to avoid sitting still. On the flip side, when the soul dominates, you get meaning without action. You end up drowning in old memories, endless processing, deep overthinking, but you never actually move forward or change your life.
This fracture is exactly what our sources call the autopilot bypass. The drift happens when the soul's subconscious waters or the spirit's raw fire completely bypass the self. The observer, the chooser, is skipped entirely. And when the self is no longer at the center making those conscious decisions, you experience a total structural collapse right into reactive survival. Your mind is officially drifting. And honestly, you see this in your daily life all the time. Think about the first guardian mentioned in the text, fear at the gates of the inner world. When you react defensively out of fear without even thinking, like when you snap at a friend or partner because an old wound was accidentally touched, that right there is how one's mind drifts on the waters of old memories. The soul is reacting automatically, and the self is just completely absent from the driver's seat.
But we absolutely do not have to stay drifting. The texts remind us, awareness is the function of the self. The beautiful thing here is, the exact moment you realize you've been on autopilot, you instantly ignite your inner will. You wake up the self. It's a radiant, incredibly empowering return to conscious choice.
So the crucial point is how we actually fix the drift. The solution is bringing the self back to what the architecture calls the throne, or Key 7. The throne is the symbolic seat of balanced consciousness in the middle world. It's the center point where self, soul, spirit, and mind finally align. Reclaiming the throne means reclaiming your true sovereignty. You finally stop being pushed by the past or pulled wildly by the future.
When safely seated at the throne, the awakened self navigates the four worlds consciously. Instead of being blindly pushed around by the soul's heavy emotions or pulled by the spirit's relentless drive, the self sits right in the middle world, the bridge, and consciously directs the mind. You can visit the inner world for meaning, and you can visit the outer world for action, without getting lost in either.
Let's move along and see how this builds, because a fully aligned mind, one that has finally stopped drifting, requires three distinct forms of knowledge working together. The spirit gives us understanding, that's knowing how things work in the outer world. The soul gives us understanding, knowing what things mean to us emotionally in the inner world. But the self gives us overstanding, knowing what a thing truly is by holding both the logic and the emotion together right from the center.
And this brilliantly illustrates that contrast. On one side, we have the deep waters of memory. On the other, the mountain of fire. True overstanding at the center doesn't force you to choose between them. It successfully holds both the deep waters of emotional meaning and the high fires of outward action in one single conscious gaze. It honors both, without ever being hijacked by either.
Which brings us to the sovereign state, the ultimate goal of reclaiming the middle world. When you achieve this, the geometry of your mind is pristine, it's balanced, it is completely illuminated by your conscious participation. The mind no longer drifts simply because it's securely anchored by a self that is actively observing, actively choosing, and actively participating in reality.
I really want to leave you with this powerful reminder straight from the source text. You are the eternal self, who has a soul, has a spirit, uses a mind, inhabits a body. You are not your temporary thoughts, you are not your reactive emotions, and you are certainly not your drifting habits. You are the eternal traveler, the conscious observer, meant to orchestrate all of them right from the center.
The architecture is crystal clear. Your mind is the bridge connecting the inner and outer worlds. But when that autopilot kicks in and the drift begins, you really have to ask yourself, who is actually sitting at the center? Is it an old fear, some blind ambition? Or is it you? It's time to take back the throne.